Welcome again to today's webinar. My name is Alex. I'm the head of support at Aplos here. And what we do is provide online software for nonprofits, which includes currently e-file, accounting, donation management, and then coming soon is going to be an email platform for you guys to communicate with your contact database. And what we're going to be taking a look at here today is the checklist that you're going to want to run through at the end of the year to make sure that all of your accounts are closed and taken care of, as well as some other helpful reminders that are kind of non-accounting specific, but just good things to do at the end of the year. So as you can see here, I've got the checklist. I'm going to try to make this full screen and see if that works. There we go. Let me zoom in a little bit there. You should be able to see that. So I'm just going to run through these different categories here and explain a little bit more about what they are. And then this checklist is actually available to all of you, which I can send to you later, or at least give you the link on where to download it so that you can print this off and have it for your reference at the end of the year. Okay, the first little category we're going to take a look at here is year-end reminders. Now, these again are not really accounting side of things, but more of just friendly reminders of what you should probably do towards the end of the year. And the first one here is housing allowance. So for churches, specifically faith-based organizations, you guys have this housing allowance that you can do for your ministers or pastors to allow them a little bit of credit for their residents. Now, if you've been doing this throughout the year, you want to make sure that all of the entries have been recorded in your accounting software properly. But then looking forward to the next year, you want to make sure that you have that kind of stipend figured out, how much that's going to be, and then be able to accordingly plan how you're going to record that for the upcoming year. If you don't have any information on the housing allowance and you're kind of curious as to what that is, let me know, and I can try to find some resources there for you to read more about. The second item here is W-4s. So you're going to want to remind your employees to review that their information is accurate and up to date. If any employees need to change how many withholdings they have or any of those kind of reclassifications there, this is now the time for them to do that as you look ahead to the next fiscal year. Something else you want to look out for is just to make sure that their other information is up to date. So if they've moved or if they've changed their cell phone or anything like that, you're going to want to make sure that all of your record for all of your employees is up to date at the end of the year so that for the next year, you don't have to mess with it. Okay, notice to donors here, year-end reminders. So remind donors to wait to file taxes until they've received their contribution summary from you. Basically what this means is for them to file taxes, they want to get the most credit possible for all of their tax deductible donations for the prior year. So for 2014, they need to have that report. So in order for them to have the most up-to-date report, they need to have that from you. Now, your deadline, we're going to take a look at that here a little bit later. Your deadline for that is January 31st. So you just want to send something to your donors and say, hey, just making sure that you don't get too gung-ho and file your taxes too soon, so that way they can get the most credit for their 2014 or whatever the current year donations are. And you may even want to send them an advanced statement too with their current donation balance. Now, there's kind of an added benefit to that. Rather than just being open and upfront with your donors and where they are as far as their donations go for the year, there is also research that indicates the more you tell people how much they've donated to you, the more likely they are to donate more. So this being the end of the year, this would be a great time for you to send out a summary saying, hey, as of December 10th, this is where you're at. This is how much you've donated. And maybe if you want to donate a little bit more, here's the link. So you can kind of use that to do two things. One, to keep them up to date, to make sure that they kind of know where they stand as far as donations. And then two, as an opportunity for you to get a little bit more of an end of the year donation from them. So there's your notice to your donors. Lastly here, the Christmas gifts. Some gifts to ministers, employees, or volunteers may be considered taxable income for them. So just make sure that you hand those out carefully and note them as needed. I can give you some more information on that if you'd like as well. But those are the year-end reminders. The next section here is year-end transactions. So this is where it gets more into the accounting side of things. So for donations, you're going to want to make sure that all donations that were received in this current year, so 2014, are entered and recorded in your accounting system, and that's for anything that's postmarked by December 31st. So what that means is as you're moving into January, let's say it's January 5th, and you get a letter in the mail with some money from somebody, but it's postmarked of December 30th. Well, that still counts for 2014. So again, you have until January 31st to send out those statements. So you do have kind of a cushion there to kind of receive the donations that may have come in a little late. But make sure to input all of those donations into your accounting or donor management software so that that's all up to date, and just really make sure to credit that into the proper year. Again, it's the date postmarked or the date given rather than the date you've received it. So just make sure to double check that date and enter it in the right period. On the expense side of things, you're going to want to make sure that your reimbursements are entered and issued in December as well. So if you owe anybody any money, same with payroll, make sure that all your payroll is up to date, all your taxes and retirement, all that kind of stuff is up to date. Basically, in short, make sure all of your accounting entries for the year are done. So all payments needed, all income received, make sure that that's all squared away, either around or right at the turn of the year. So that way you can close out your financials. Check to make sure all revenue and expense that have been entered in the prior year. Yeah, so same kind of thing. Just before you actually go about the process of closing your books and preparing to start the next fiscal year, just make sure that everything for December and previous has been up to date and completed. And actually, we have a normal a month-end checklist. This is the annual or year-end checklist, but we do have a monthly one as well. If you're curious, I can send that to you. But you're going to want to go through your kind of normal month-end checklist as well. So all payments are entered, all income is entered, your bank reconciliation is done, your bank balances are up to date, any reports that you need to generate have been generated. All of that kind of normal stuff still applies here at the end of the year. The next section here, review accounts. So again, more on the accounting side of things. So you're going to want to run annual reports to check for accuracy and all of your accounts balance. So this is a little bit more geared towards those of you who do not use an accounting software like Aplos. But if you are keeping records either through an Excel file or some sort of hand ledger or some other program that maybe doesn't have some checks and balances already kind of written into it, you're just going to want to make sure that all of your accounts are accurate and that all, again, transactions have been entered, all adjusting entries have been entered, and then once you've kind of done all those adjustments, you would rerun your statements for the end of the year to have the kind of finished final product financial statements for the year. Really what this boils down to is the end of the year reports are important for your board and for your own records. So as you go back and reference, or if you hand this stuff out to your boards or your congregation, whatever you do, you want to make sure that that's accurate, not, hey, here's a report. Oh, wait, I forgot to do something. Here's another report, because that looks bad. And so just make sure that you have all transactions entered, check for accuracy in all of your accounts, make sure that everything has been kind of tied off, and then run those financial statements and hand them out to whoever needs them. Confirm bank account balances. This goes into bank reconciliation, which again is kind of one of those monthly checklist items. So run a bank reconciliation, make sure that your bank balances as of the end of the year are accurate when compared with your bank, and make sure that you're carrying over the right fund balances into the next year. You also want to confirm that your account signatories are still valid, which means that your account signers, the people in charge of signing off on things, are still around, are still authorized, are still willing to do the work. Just make sure that that's all still in place, because the last thing you want to do is move forward into another fiscal year assuming that something is going to be fine, and then one of them drops off or whatever. So just make sure that that's all handled as well, so that way you don't have to do the work in the middle of the year. Another thing you can do here is conduct healthcare open enrollment. If you have healthcare options, make sure that you do that for the next year. Another important thing here is review internal controls for the upcoming year. Now, internal controls is something that we have talked about quite a bit here at Aplos. And what an internal control is a process that you put in place to make sure that accuracy and that fraud is not being committed. Okay. So we have actually an academy lesson that goes over kind of at a high level what internal controls are. So if you're curious, I can send that to you. But if you already know what internal controls are, you already have some processes in place, just run through those, make sure that they are still relevant, they're working, they're accurate. And if you need to add more, make sure to write those down somewhere and make them a part of your next process so that in the upcoming year you can be protected. Okay. Prepare your budget for the next year. Okay, you're most likely doing that now. Usually you don't wait until the end of the year to do it. You're probably already working on a budget now. And review your chart of accounts and designated funds based on your anticipated needs. Now, I am kind of a weird champion for this type of thing. And the reason is a lot of people get stuck with their chart of accounts thinking, well, I might need this account one day, and you never use it. Or, the IRS tells us to format and group things this certain way. And so we did, but I don't know what I'm reading. It's like another language. So with your chart of accounts, what I would recommend to you is it's the end of the year. You now have a full 12 months behind you to look back and say, did this work? Did we use this account? Was this useful? The way that we've been doing things this year, was this effective? So you can ask those kinds of backlog questions. And then going forward in the new year, you have now an opportunity to change your chart of accounts and change the way that you're going to do things for the next year. So if you have an income or an expense account or a grouping or some sort of organization in your chart of accounts that either one, is not relevant, or two, does not make any sense, change it. It's yours. It's your chart of accounts. At the end of the day, you're the one looking at this and reviewing and generating reports based on the accounts that you have created. So you have full ability to make this tailored to whatever you guys need as your individual organization. One church is going to be different than the other. One nonprofit is going to be different than the other. So I don't know, I'll get off my soapbox, but tailor this thing to exactly what you need. And if you need to make any changes, go for it. If you need some advice on that, be sure to contact us as well. We're more than happy to help in that regard. Last thing here in the review accounts section is review your insurance policies to make sure that they are accurate. So most insurance policies run on either an annual or semi-annual basis. So just make sure that everything's up to date. If you need to make a change, do so. But this is just kind of a healthy reminder to say, oh yeah, we have this kind of insurance. So let's make sure that this is up to date and, again, kind of doing what we want. Okay. Oops. Oh, I'm sorry. Here we go. Last section here is the tax forms. Okay. So tax forms, there's three different sections here. One is, again, the W-4 forms that you have for employees. Make sure that you do any changes. We mentioned that a little earlier on, so just kind of double check that. Also, complete IRS Form 1099 for vendors by January 31st. 1099 forms are an IRS form that you need to provide to vendors who you have paid over. It's either $500 or $600. It's right in that range. I'll get you a better answer. But if you've paid someone as a vendor more than that amount, you legally have to issue them a 1099. So go through that process. If you need some guidance on that process, feel free to let us know as well. But those are due by January 31. So don't slack on that. That usually takes a while too, because you need their EIN number, you need their address, you need their contact. And if you don't have it, it's kind of a pain to get. So start doing that now. Make sure that they're out by January 31st. Kind of the flip side to that is the contribution statements are also due by January 31st as well. And this is, again, the annual record of who's given to you, when, and how much. And so then you provide them that statement for their taxes, which, again, they're going to want to wait on until they have that complete contribution statement for the year that just finished. So those are due by January 31. Make sure that you have all of your donors' gifts, amounts, contact information, mailing address. Just make sure that all that is taken care of. You've got it stored for you, and then get those statements out by January 31. Okay. Now, there's probably 100 other things we could tell you to do, or that might be good best practice type stuff. But what we tried to do with this checklist is kind of consolidate all of the big items and put them onto a checklist for you, which, again, I'll send to you, or at least I'll tell you where to get it, so that way you can print this out and have this for reference as you begin to finish out the year. All right. So that was the webinar for the year-end checklist. So what I'd like to do now is I see that some questions have come through, and what I'd like to do is just open it up for some Q&A time. So if you have any questions about this or about really anything, feel free to submit those into that question field, and I will do my best to give you some answers. All right, I'll mute myself, and I'll be back in just a few minutes to answer those questions.